Hello. Today we're going to be looking at warrior poses, Virabhadrasana 1, 2, and 3. We're going to start by coming to the top of our mat, the front of our mat, and we're going to come into our mountain pose, and we're going to think about stepping one foot back. So let's do the right foot. Now, when you step it back, initially you might be leery of stepping too far back. So let's just look at what happens if you just take a little step backwards. So I'm going to shift my body weight. My right foot is going to come back, and I'm going to be like, this is my warrior pose. Now, the issue with this, if I turn my foot and I line up my front heel with my back heel, is you'll notice right away that when I bend my front leg, what happens is my knee comes in front of my ankle. That is not what we want to have happen. So we want to make sure that the knee is right above the ankle, or maybe even just a little bit behind it, but not here. So this is going to be bad posture in terms of aligning in specifically Warrior 2 in this particular situation. So let's see how I could change that. If I'm leery of stepping way back initially, I could step back a little ways and I'm like, oh, I am too short. So I just step back further, right? And I take some time to feel where I want to be in my stance. And so most beginning students do not have a wide enough stance to feel stable in this posture. So try widening your stance in order to increase stability. The other thing that we don't want to do is we don't want to take our shoulders in front of our hips. So take a moment to just feel if your shoulders are stacked right over your hips. We also want to make sure that the back foot is turned in and I'm pressing through the outer arch of my foot. So I have my weight evenly distributed on both feet. You'll notice that my back foot, the toes are turned in, and they are in front of my heel. My front heel is lined up either with my back heel, or actually I like to line it up with my back instep. Now, I have my front leg bent. The knee is going to have a tendency to fall in, and so we want to make sure that you feel like you're externally rotating this front thigh, and the knee is going to track over the pinky toe side of your foot. So here I am, I'm in my warrior pose, and I want to take my arms and I want to bring them out right at the level of my shoulders. So sometimes students have a tendency to have their shoulders up next to their ears and maybe their arms above. So just relax it down. Okay, and take a deep breath in. Now, we're going to play with straightening that front leg, and as we do, we're going to lift our arms up. This is not part of the regular pose, but I just want you to feel into straightening and bending that front knee, keeping it either over the ankle or a little bit behind that ankle. So this can take some of the stress and strain off of your muscles when you're first learning the Warrior 2 pose. Okay. Now, from here, I'm going to show you how to do a version of Warrior 2, which is called Exalted Warrior. So I'm going to bring my back hand down to my thigh, and then I'm going to lift my front hand, and I'm going to bend at the side waist. So I have this side bend. My head could either be looking up or it could be looking out. You don't want any strain in your neck. So wherever that is for you, breathing, you could even try looking down. Now for beginning students, this is actually very much almost a balance pose. So like, how can I create stability? I could pull my low belly in. I could engage my core. And then what I want to do perhaps is find something to look at to steady my gaze and steady my whole body. So that gaze point is called your drishti point. So let's take a deep breath in, and then let's bring it back. Pick up that back foot, turn and step forward. We're going to switch to the other side. So remember, taking that first step back might be a little scary. So you could always take a couple of steps back and then establish the distance that you have between your feet, making sure that my front knee is not falling in, but is externally rotating out, and my back toes are in front of my heel, and I'm pressing down through the outer arch of my foot. I'm going to take my arms out, and then we're going to practice straightening and bending that front leg. So take a deep breath in and exhale. Shoulders down away from your ears. Knee does not come in front of the ankle joint. Okay, Exalted Warrior, back hand comes down, turning that front hand palm up and reach up and back, keeping the bend in the front leg. It's really easy to just like maybe even come out of that front leg bend, but if you feel that, just make sure that you bend down into that front knee and your side bending. So you should feel this in your waist. Your head and neck should be nice and relaxed. Breathe here. Bring it back to center. You could pick up that back foot, heel, and step it forward. So that was Warrior 2. Now, less commonly used in classes, at least for me, is Warrior 1. Warrior 1 is similar to a high lunge. And so with Warrior 1, rather than turning to the side, we're going to try to keep our hips faced to the front. So if I step back my right foot and I come into this high lunge, then I turn and I keep my foot, my whole foot is on the floor this time, and I turn and I rotate my chest and my hips towards the front of my mat. So this here is Warrior 1, Virabhadrasana 1. You could keep your hands on your hips. You could bring your hands in front of your heart. You could bring your hands over your head. Arms are parallel. You could bring your hands so that they interlace and the index finger is up. And then you could look up. So this is a gentle back bend, keeping that bend in the front leg. Notice that my knee stays either behind my ankle or right above my ankle. Take a deep breath in. Exhale, back to center. Now, if this does not feel good to you in terms of maybe your foot or your knee, it's a little wonky on that, maybe that back knee, then just stay up on the ball of the foot. Even if we're doing Warrior 1, this is a perfectly great alternative to Warrior 1, which squares your hips without perhaps putting a little extra strain on your knee. Okay, stepping that back forward. Let's do the other side. So stepping back, maybe you need to take 2 steps back, turning that foot, and then here my heel generally lines up with my back heel. So my front heel and my back heel are aligned, and then I see if I can square my shoulders to the front of the mat and square my hips as best as I can. Hands to heart, arms above your head, or maybe even interlaced, gentle back bend. Find your gaze point for stability. Bend maybe a little bit more into that front leg. Warrior 1. Take a deep breath in. Exhale your hands back to center. Let's try it with just a high lunge. We're up on the ball of our foot. Arms can come up. You could look back. Again, this might be challenging your balance, so engage your core. Pull up on your low belly. Find something to look at. Take a deep breath in and exhale. Let's bring it back to center. Okay. Now, Warrior 3 is different in that it is a one-legged balance pose. So I like to step 1 foot forward and notice that my feet are parallel. So the idea here is to Maybe bring your hands to your hips, and we're going to hinge at the hip, keeping the spine long. So hands could come to the hips, or they could come into the heart, or you could bring them out by your ears. Now, the key to this pose is that you're flexing through the back leg, and you're finding your drishti, and you're engaging your core. So coming over, maybe your warrior three looks like this to begin with, but eventually maybe you could lift that back leg and then see if you can line up your thighs. So it's a tendency to have this back thigh externally rotated, but see if you can pull it in so that your thighs are lined up. So I'm internally rotating this leg and internally rotating this leg. And then I can find my drishti and I can reach through my fingertips. Breathe. Okay, bringing it back through center. Let's try the other side. So again, finding something to look at. Gazes down, flexing through that back leg. Maybe your hands are in front of your heart. Breathe. Internally rotate that back leg. Internally rotate the front thigh. Flex through the foot. And then perhaps bringing your arms out, finding your gaze point, hinging at the hips. Breathe. Take a deep breath in. Let's bring it back to center. And then just shake out the body. Notice how these poses are very fire building. They're strength building. They're balancing. They're building your stability and strength in the poses. And they provide a real foundation for many of the yoga flows, because we flow through these poses perhaps on the way to another pose. So let me know if you have any questions.